Hey guys, Matt here, and due to popular requests, today I'll be showcasing my seed farmer slash T1 craft farming build. So this build basically serves one purpose, and that is to farm as many seeds and as many T1 crafts as possible. So we are running at about a 600% movement speed, and we are also able to kill basically T1 seeds as well as T2 seeds actually. I've never tried to kill T3 seeds with this build. My goal is, or my guess is that it can do it, but it would take a while and I wouldn't recommend it. But before anything else, let me just go ahead and showcase this build. So it's not going too fast to the point where it's uncontrollable, but it's also very, very quick to the point where we can basically be farming seeds at about like 10 second or 20 second per map, depending of course how fast we find the seed cache. And despite the fact that it has literally less than 2000 HP, it's actually not that squishy. Now, it is squishy when you get hit, but the idea is to just not get hit too often, as you can see. So let's go ahead and get out of this map, and we can explain what the idea behind this build is. So the idea is to basically make free currency. Literally free currency. So there's two things you can do with this build. First, which is the cheap thing, is to farm seeds. So you can actually buy these T14 maps in bulk, about 40 to 50 random T14 maps of any given rarity for 1 exalt, meaning you're paying about 3 to 4 chaos per map. Now that's interesting because 3 to 4 chaos is actually basically this, meaning these seeds here, any tier 1 seeds, it doesn't matter which one, of eye level 70 or 76 or above, will sell for 0.5 chaos in huge bulk. Meaning, in that map that I just ran, I just got 16 seeds. That is 8 chaos, while the map cost me 3 to 4, meaning I basically doubled my money within seconds. So, another thing to note here is that there are some seeds that are actually much more expensive. For example, the Weta seeds, which are for life, or the Scorpion, which are for cold crafts, actually sell in bulk for about 1.5 to 2C each, which is massive because a single stack of them in a map, let's say you get like 8, will net you 4 times the price of your map, and that doesn't include the other seeds that will drop alongside those. So it is a very, very easy way to make currency if you're somebody who doesn't have much currency to begin with. Of course, this build is also very cheap. So for the first part of the video, I want to talk about basically the build just for seed farming and not for craft farming. Because the craft farming section of this build is basically where we actually start investing into doing damage, and then it can actually get fairly expensive. So I'll have the POB to this entire build in the video description, as well as in a comment section, so you can go ahead and rip that out if you think that's all you need. Otherwise, for the rest of the video, I'll be explaining both the interactions between the items and what makes it work, and also the necessary investment to be able to kill T14 maps with this build. Because if we look at the tree, you'll see that there's basically no damage anywhere. It is pretty much all and entirely speed. So the first thing I want to talk about is the Ascendancy. Now, obviously, we are a Pathfinder, and we are going to get Nature's Boon as our first Ascendancy, followed by Nature's Adrenaline from our second. So the idea here is to get the 20% chance for flasks to not consume charges. Now, if I go ahead and show you guys my flask here, if I use 3, which is my Overwhelming Chalice, along 4 and 5, so I just pianoed them, and as soon as the first one comes off, I just go ahead and do the same thing again. You'll see that I can get basically full effect of all my flask for a solid about 4 rotations of permanent Quicksilver flask uptime before I actually run out, and that can even go higher depending on my RNG when it comes to the Ascendancy node. So you'll see that right now, for the first time, I basically ran out of Quicksilver, and I've been sitting here for like 20 seconds. Now, most maps will actually take you only 2 rotations of your Overwhelming Chalice, your Quicksilver, and your Jade Flask. So you're basically running full speed all the time when you're in maps without actually having to kill anything. So that's the reason why we get Nature's Boon. Next, we're going to get Nature's Adrenaline, which is basically just 50% move speed. great. Also, the attack speed is really good for Toxic Rain, which is going to be useful in the second part of the video where I talk about how to actually deal damage with this build. Afterwards, when it comes to the the Merciless Lab and the Uber Lab, all we care about is getting more flask effect. So we don't actually get any of the big nodes. We only get small nodes, and we get 4 of them for basically flask effect, and also flash charges, stuff like that. Because we are a flask finder, the idea is to get as much flask uptime as possible. So the first thing I want to talk about basically after this is basically this chilled stuff here. So if you guys know me for my lab running, you'll know about the video that I made about self-chill. So what self-chill is basically chilling yourself to get speed. So when you're chilled, typically you will get as much as a 30% reduction to your action speed. Now, action speed is a multiplier, meaning if you have 100% movement speed and you're chilled by a full 30% chill, you will be moving at 70% movement speed. Now, the idea here is that we reverse this effect to multiply our move speed, which we get a very high base of 457. So once we are chilled, we're actually running around at 600% move speed. So it's not too fast that it's uncomfortable, but it's fast enough to allow us to literally farm hundreds of maps per hour if we actually wanted to. Pretty easily, actually. Especially if we're not killing anything and we're just going for seed caches, which is what you could do if you have no currency and you just want to get going. You could farm exalts upon exalts by just rushing to the seed cache and going to the next map over and over again. Selling the seeds in bulk, buying maps in bulk. There you go. You're going to be making multiple exalts per hour just by doing that, which is pretty insane. There's going to be a link in the comment section to the TFT Discord, which is where you can both sell your seeds in bulk and also buy maps in bulk as well. So the next thing that we need to explain here is basically how this works. So this is going to require 5 different things, and if you're missing any of those, it won't work. So it is pretty taxing in terms of how many items you actually need to make this work. The first thing is basically you're going to need the Winter Weave ring, which gives you the effective chill on you is reversed, and that is the baseline of this whole strategy. The second thing is the Oxen Belt. Now, the Oxen Belt gives you chill and freeze effect duration on you are based on 100% of your energy shield. So if you don't know how chill, shock, and ignites work in this game, they're basically based on the amount of damage, the amount of percent of your life that you take as damage. So to get a full 30% chill, you actually need to take a lot of damage, a lot of cold damage to actually be chilled from a hit. And especially to get a 30% chill inflicted on you, which is a 30% damage reduction. So by doing this, the effect of chill and freezer is actually based on energy shield. Meaning, if we get our energy shield to 0, if we take a single cold damage, that is going to chill us to a full 30%. And that's basically what we're doing here. Now, how do we get our energy shield to 0? It's pretty much impossible given the fact that we're using Oxen Belt, which gives us like 150 energy shield, meaning for chilling ourselves a full 30% by just equipping the Oxen Belt is almost impossible. But fortunately for us, there is the Agnostic Keystone, which gives our maximum energy shield is 0. So that basically makes it possible. So now the question becomes, how do we basically inflict cold damage to ourselves? Well, we use the Scold's Brittle, which gives us your skills deal 400% of mana spent on skill as physical damage. So if my phase run is costing me 34 mana, it's actually hitting me for 4 times that amount of damage as physical. Meaning it's doing 34 times 4 damage to me as fizz. So we need at least some of that to be cold damage to chill ourselves. And we do this by using a shield with the corruption physical damage from hits taken as cold damage, because this damage that you're taking here is actually hitting you. So it actually applies. So by having this physical damage from hits taken as cold damage, which you can get on either a shield corruption or a Watcher's Eye. Now you can't really get it through a Watcher's Eye because you can't have the auras required to actually make it work unless you drop either haste or grace. You don't want to drop grace because you need it for the Queen of the Forest to get enough evasion to get a maximum move speed bonus from it. and you don't want to be dropping haste because it's just flat percent move speed. Now it's actually only 10%, but it's also a good bit of attack speed, which is really, really good for Toxic Rain, which we're going to go into really soon, explaining how to actually deal damage with the build. So that's essentially how the reverse chill mechanic works. The rest of the build is purely based on movement speed. So we have like 7 league steps. We have some hands of the high Templar with a bunch of levels to our smoke mine, or smoke mine is level 25, and this is without an empower. So if I was to throw an empower level 4 in there, it would become level 5, which would give me 6 levels to my smoke mine or something. So we can get some pretty damn juice on move speed from our smoke mine. Otherwise, we're using Queen of the Forest, obviously. Best for the movement speed in the game, 50% movement speed right there. And otherwise, that's pretty much it for move speed. The rest is going to be on the tree. So how do we get move speed on the tree? Well, we are going to use Transcendent Spirits, which give us 3% move speed per 10 dex allocated. And now the important part about using these, though, is that you want to make sure that if you use one, you have no unallocated dexterity in your passive radius, because then you would actually be losing movement speed for that. So we use one here that gives us 18% move speed, one here that gives us 27, and then one here that gives us also 27. And these are also multiplied by 130%, given the fact that we are chilling ourselves for a 30% increased action speed modifier. So that is quite good. Now, I know a lot of people would be like, why don't you have Tailwind Elusive Boots? Isn't that super good? Well, you can't really do that, unfortunately. Tailwind Elusive Boots are kind of out of the picture because you don't hit anything while you're running, and we are a Toxic Rain build when it comes to killing, so we never crit, unfortunately. Now, there is a method to go around that using a Glove Corruption, and then having the Glove Corruption crit somehow, but that is kind of a whole other story, but it is technically doable if you really wanted to. But using 7 League Steps is a lot easier, a lot more simple, and then getting some Hands of Templar with a bunch of levels or a Smoke Mine is also pretty feels good, man. So once that is that, you are going to get move speed from a Unnatural Instinct, because you get 9% movement speed there. Now, of course, if you don't have money to afford an Unnatural Instinct, because they are like almost 9x or something, you don't need one. It's just a min-maxing for the 9% move speed down here, and also a decent bit of attack speed and whatnot, so it's pretty good, but it's unnecessary. And then the rest of the tree is mostly just movement speed and a little bit of life. And then the next thing is going to be Flask Effect, so we like Flask Effect here, stuff like that. Because Flask Effect basically gives more effect to your Quicksilver, which means instead of your Quicksilver giving you, say, 40% move speed, it gives you like 60, 70, and so on. So that's basically it for that portion of the video in terms of how do we move so fast. And this gear is extremely, extremely cheap. Now, when it comes to basically the gems that we're using, we are using, like I said, the Smoke Mine alongside Efficacy for the duration and increased duration support. Now, if you wanted to, you could very easily throw in an Empower in there. I didn't do it because I think I just forgot. But you could throw in an Empower to get your Smoke Mine even more levels, which means more movement speed. I don't have anything socking in my boots, nothing in my weapon. I have a faster casting with Portal in my helmet, which actually does get affected by my reverse chill. So let me go to Lower Prison and show you guys that. Because my portal actually, I think, yeah, so since I'm always chilled, when I use my portal, it actually gives me action speed, so you'll see that I actually pull up this portal like pretty damn quick. So you actually don't really need anything else, just portal alongside faster casting, and that is going to be really, really good. You won't really feel like you're wasting a bunch of time actually casting your portal, because the reverse shield gives you that 30% basically cast speed, which is dope. Then we're using Cast on Death portal, because as you can see, we only have 2000 HP. Now, I've actually leveled up twice since I started using this build, from just killing monsters, which are T1 seeds, basically. So it can be done, and but it's still not the safest build, and sometimes you'll just get hit, and since some of that damage is taken as cold and you don't have very much life, you will be frozen if things hit you too often or for too much damage. And when that happens, you're pretty much going to die. So Cast on Death Portal is really, really important. Otherwise, we're using a phase run setup, obviously, which is where we are using the mana. So phase run goes with like phase run enhance for the quality, because you get more move speed from the quality than anything else. We get second wind efficacy for the duration and then increased duration. So that allows us to have permanent phase run. As you can see, my phase run cooldown is done before I actually run out. It's actually taken half the time. And the reason for that is that we use a Watcher's Eye with cooldown recovery speed of movement skill used while affected by haste, which is another reason why haste is pretty damn good. I also have chaos damage over time multiplier while affected by malevolence, which is just for damage but not necessary. This is probably the most expensive thing in the build aside from the bow, which I'll be getting into really soon. So that's pretty much for the whole build in terms of just moving around. Now for the people who want to actually farm crafts and not farm seeds with this build, you will need damage. And as you can see, there's no damage anywhere on the tree, there's no damage from our Ascendancy, there's no damage on the build. So where do we get damage? Well, we go Toxic Rain. Fortunately, Toxic Rain is really, really strong by just gaining basically levels. So what we're going to want to do is get as much multiplier as possible and as much flat amount of levels as possible. So this is where the build can become a little bit more expensive. Now most of these items are actually really cheap. Like I said, the most expensive part is probably the Watcher's Eye with dot multi by Malevolence. So we do run Malevolence, of course. It's just super, super good. And then we are going to be basically getting a few different things. So the first thing is going to be an amulet with plus level of all chaos, dexterity, and dexterity gems. You can get life on there as well, like I did. Very easy with the lead mechanic, of course. And then also chaos damage over time multiplier. Now, how to make these amulets is very, very easy. Don't go spending whatever people are selling them for. Just make one yourself. You start with nothing but the level of dexterity gems, and you can force on the chaos multi, both the chaos multi and the level of chaos spell skill gems with the lead mechanic and chaos augments and chaos rerolls. So very cheap to make this yourself. I made this within not even 2x, so super, super cheap. The next thing we're going to want, also, the Anoint is freedom of movement, by the way. So freedom of movement gives us basically movement speed while phasing and chance to gain phasing for 4 seconds on kill, which is very, very useful when it comes to the actual killing of the tier 1 seeds, because you can just basically bob and weave between them, which is quite nice. Now the next thing we're going to get damage from is our quiver. This is a very basic quiver. I made this within, I believe, 4 exalts, and that was super, super unlucky because most of that currency was actually used by using imprints. So you're going to start with the chaos damage over time, the damage over time multiplier of tier 1. You imprint that. Once that is imprinted, you are going to go ahead and just regal it and then slam some chaos stuff on it until you get chaos.multi, and you're pretty much done. You craft on attack speed, you force on life with a league mechanic. Done. That quiver, very, very easy to make. Now, the only big investment aside from the Watcher's Eye is going to be the bow. So how do we get a lot of damage out of Toxic Rain? Like I said, is basically gem levels. So my Toxic Rain is level 32 in this bow, and it's actually level 21. So this bow is giving me 11 levels to my Toxic Rain, which is pretty damn insane. So the reason for that is because we were getting +1 strength gem, which applies to our Empower, which is level 4. So that's giving us basically 6 levels to our Toxic Rain, which is huge. And then we're getting +1 from the Dexterity, +1 from the Socket of Gems, +2 for the Bow Gems. Then we also have some attack speed on there, which is quite nice. And we finish it off with chaos damage over time multiplier. So this bow is being sold for anywhere from 20 to 30, 40, even 50 exalts, depending how well it's crafted and stuff. But it is really not that hard to make. So let me go ahead and show you guys how it's made real quick. So I'll go ahead and pull up Craft of Exile and look up for a bow. So it is not influence, and you're going to be using fossils. Now, it takes faceted fossils, which is what would normally be very expensive to make these bows, but fortunately, faceted fossils this league are super cheap. You can get faceted fossils for like 2 to 3 per exalt, and as I'm about to show, it doesn't take that many attempts to get this. So getting the dex alongside the strength takes on average 22 attempts, but we can actually get this better by blocking some stuff. So by using corroded, we can actually block out all the elemental stuff. And then by using metallic, we can drop all the physical and bleed stuff, which gives us to 18 basically on average. And we can do even better by throwing in jagged, which makes it an average of only 8 4-socket resonators to actually acquire the +1 dex and +1 strength. Now that's not it though, because we do need the +2, and then it looks like it's an average of 19, which might sound like a lot, but in reality, since faceted fossils are very cheap, like 2 per X, corroded fossils are super cheap, metallic fossils are basically free, and so are jagged fossils. It's really not that expensive, and the resonators are somewhat expensive though. Pretty much the most expensive being like 2 per exalt or so. The next thing that we're going to want is level of socketed gems. Now, if you wanted to get all this, the average would be 31, which is pretty high, but we can make this easier on ourselves by basically just forcing the level of socketed gems. We can do this very easily since once you have the level of dexterity and strength gems, there are no prefixes on the bow. Except for your +2 bow gems. So you can remove any of those suffixes with the lead mechanic. So for example, by removing attack or removing crit or whatever it is. And then you could go ahead and craft on the bench cannot roll attack mods. So by putting on cannot roll attack mods, you'll see that all of these different prefixes on bows are actually attacks. So you can craft on cannot roll attack mods and then slam an exalt, and you are guaranteed to get +1 level of socketed gems. At which point, you would have a bow that looks like mine. All you have to do is craft chaos damage over time multiplier and then augment speed to get the attack speed. It might take a couple rerolls to get it, but then you're essentially done. Like I stop with T3 attack speed, so it's not even perfect or anything. But this bow cost me only a few X, but I did get pretty lucky. That being said, don't go paying the 30, 40 exalt or whatever is charged for these bows. With all these level of gems, because that is not what they're worth. They're actually very easy to make because of the price of the faceted fossils. So I didn't mean to go into this map. By putting all these things together, by having the level 32 Toxic Rain, by having attack speed on a fair bit of our gear, by having the Watcher's Eye with the damage over time multiplier, by running the Malevolence Aura, and finally by running 2 cluster jewels. We're going with medium cluster jewels. One of them has Brush with Death alongside Wicked Pal, so it's basically skill effect duration, chaos damage, and then damage over time multiplier. And then the other is chaos damage, skill effect duration, and the most important part is Eternal Suffering, because it gives you free Wither, so you don't have to run like Wither Totem or anything like that. You get a 50% chance to inflict Withered for 2 seconds on hit if there are 5 or fewer Wither debuffs on enemies. So since we have no sources of Wither, this is basically always up after just basically one Toxic Rain actual cast. So it's really, really good. These cluster jewels are not that expensive. One of them cost me 2x, and the other I believe was 5x. So the 5x one is kind of on the expensive side, but the other one was pretty cheap. Now you could also probably get them even cheaper if you didn't look for 4 passives or 5 passives, but I'm only level 82. This character becomes functional around level 80 because, well, first off, the auction requires level 79, but 82 is like actually pretty damn good. Now if I was to level up some more, I would go ahead and get Method of Madness, which is giving me some resistances, some dot multi, whatnot. Probably grab up some of these nodes for flask effect and stuff like that, and then potentially grab a large cluster jewels instead of having just 2 medium. As for the small jewels, they're basically just attack speed with bows, and damage over time multiplier, chaos damage. That's pretty much it. So very, very easy to actually build this character. And for how much it costs, it is insane. Like the amount of seeds you can actually farm with this guy, without the killing part of the build, like it is so cheap for what it does. And when you get to the point where you made enough currency to want to invest into the actual killing part to be able to farm your own crafts so you can sell crafts instead of selling seeds, which is more profitable but also more work, you can actually do so by crafting, like I said, the amulet, the quiver, and the bow. So that is pretty much it for the build. As I said earlier, POB in both the comment section and in the description of the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. It is a really nice build to play. And before I go, though, I do want to say huge thank you to my supporters, as always: Gaikona, Kfish, Zachary, Luro, Scott, Dr. Radu, Casicus, Francesco, Amazos Korov, Mr. Coffee, Mario, and Jungle Dog, as well as anybody else who wishes to remain anonymous, and also anybody else who supports me through different platforms. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and let me know how it goes if you do decide to make this build, and if you enjoy playing it or not. This build will basically give you a good idea of what it feels like to be a lab runner, but also do damage, which is quite nice. So I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.